before working with us, how were you guys managing the property or properties, and what wasn't working financially?
Yeah, so we were managing our own properties at this point, and we thought we had found a good situation with a corporate lease where she basically was handling the tenants in theory, but what
Hmm.
was happening was not what we thought it was. And so the vetting process for our tenants was not great. And so, we're covering the basics with pest control and lawn care, maintenance, things like that. But come to find out, this last tenant before you guys was a pretty bad experience and cost several $1,000s worth of damage that could have been avoided. But again, we were trusting someone else with that did not go well. Even though at the end of the day, it was ultimately our responsibility to be checking in on that, and
Mm.
it did not go well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But hopefully, yeah, hopefully the situation is different now.
Oh yes, very. Yeah. And I think too, just what wasn't working financially, every month or every time we went to, sorry, not every month, but probably every 6 months, she was asking for a rent reduction because her business wasn't doing well. So she was looking for breaks everywhere she could. And so from where we started with her to where it ended, the rent money had gone way down.
Uh, what specific problems were costing you the most money?
I think twofold. One, I would say outside of money was our time, right? Because we were personally having to check in on the house or maintain, whether it was the concerns of the tenant or showings to get it re-rented, figuring out how to get a new tenant in there when things went sideways. All of that, I think time is almost more valuable to us than money at this point with our young family. But then on top of that, what was costing us the most was when the damage was done, right? We were not responsible for the background check. We were trusting the corporate lease to handle that. And since
Yeah.
that turned out so poorly, what ultimately cost us was, we were talking about thousands of dollars of damage to windows and the interior, exterior, just really poor care for the house. And so that it wasn't a death by 1,000 paper cuts. It was just one big terrible situation that cost a lot of money that we could have avoided if we had someone actually helping with the background check and things like that.
Yeah. And then what specific changes can you think of that we made that put more money in your pocket each month?
Yeah, everything. Everything. So I think the fact that you guys do the background checks and, vet all the tenants and do the showings yourself so that there's someone there. Even during the ice storm, it was so cool. We just set a request. Hey, can we make sure the house is okay? Had somebody out there like the next day checking on the house, make sure, if there were any trees down, things like that. Check, making sure everything looked good. When we had an issue with the heater, we already had somebody out there the next day to help get that fixed for the tenants. And so just boots on the ground, things that in theory we would, say we have time for to do ourselves, and we really don't. So it helps us so much to have somebody else doing that. And really where we saved the most money was our lease ended with the previous tenant, and we didn't have a game plan for someone else to take the space. So every month that you guys got us a tenant sooner was an entire mortgage payment that we weren't paying. So even if the market was shifting a little bit, the house is not in the best area of town, so we aren't going to see top dollar, but every month that the basics are covered and our mortgage is paid is still huge savings, right? And so we're not necessarily looking for huge cash flow on this house, but the fact that you guys found us tenants, I think it was only open and vacant for like 2 weeks, something really less than 1 month's mortgage payment. So that was huge. Having you guys step in and get a new tenant in there was huge savings. Even if the month to month doesn't look hugely different, that was worth it just in that.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Like, we'd rather have a tenant there at a reasonable price that we can get now than wait a month or 2 months. It seems like more and more people are realizing that, but that's just smarter.
Well, you do some basic math and you realize, wait, is it worth holding out to get $100 more a month when you've lost several thousand in a couple months of not having rent? How long is it going to take you to make up the difference anyway? Versus just saying like, yep, okay, not the highest price point ever, but we have a tenant in the house, one living in it, making sure the pipes are working, all the things is just actually working in the house, but also covering the basics. And from there, as the landlord, as the owner, you are still reaping the benefit of equity and appreciation, right? So we're, with us, we're playing the long game anyway. So as long as we have a tenant in there covering the mortgage, then we're good to go.
Excellent. Yeah, having somebody in the house is an asset.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're able to tell you faster than anybody that, hey, the trees are down or something's not working, versus you not knowing, and it's weeks later and you're like, oh, this would have been really good to know that happened.
Yeah. Thankfully we have an awesome team that whenever there's a event like that, they know to snap to it. And so are you able to say how much more money you're making per month or annually than you were before?
So we're making about the same as far as the actual monthly payment. And if anything, we may be making a little bit less since we are paying the property management fee. But as I said, I feel like because of the fact that we had no gap in tenant, that was several $1,000s for 2025, 2026 year. And then of course, we're playing the quality game of, by you guys taking the time to vet the tenant and make sure the background check and all that was done well, we're not going to come across another issue like we did before with major house damage. And so in my mind, even though the rent is about the same and we're actually paying you guys a little bit of that, I would rather have that, knowing we're not going to have another $6,000 window repair. Right. And so I see it that way, of like thousands of dollars of damage from a not responsible tenant, plus I would say at least 2 or 3 months of rent from last year into this year that you guys helped save us because we weren't the ones finding the tenant.
Yeah. And which the rent is what, 1,800 there?
This one's at 1,575, I think.
1,575 times 3 is like 4,700 or so, 4,750 plus the say 6,000. So that's like $10,000.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So good.
And then, so what would you say to someone who is worried about the management fee eating into their profits?
I would say, as I mentioned for our own lives, but I think would be true for most people who are homeowners, is seeing the big picture of the quality of your life. And yes, there is a little cut that comes with that, but these are people who are experts in their field. And so by allowing them to do their jobs, you're able to breathe easy, own your property, receive money, basically work free, right? Where you're not the one with the stress. I think for me, especially as a mom of 2 little girls, I don't have the brain space to be thinking about that property. I know that it's in good hands with you guys. If I need to get involved, you guys let us know, but I know it's being taken care of. I would much rather pay the small fee to know that it's in good hands for the long term versus feeling like I need to micromanage. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, is wanting control or feeling like, oh yeah, I can do it all myself. It'll save us some money. But what about the quality of your life, where you're having to drive over there all the time or find the next tenant, or stress because you don't have a tenant, or when the power does go out or the issue arises, you're the only line of defense, versus being able to trust someone like Gemstone who's like, they've got it and I don't have to worry, and I can continue focusing on what I need to focus on, which is, whether it's your job or your family or your hobbies and passion or go travel, you can do those things. I don't know if you can put a price tag on that, but I would say, I would just encourage that person, give it a shot, just try it and see what you think. And if you hate it, you can obviously change your mind, but what you're going to find is that small fee is going to be worth it, and you're never going to go backwards.
If someone like you was on the fence about hiring a property management company, what would you tell them?
I think just truly giving it a shot and seeing the result of what it does to the quality of your life, and saying, this is bigger than the money. And oftentimes maybe they can still get you rent at what you wanted anyway. And the quality of your life with this less stress on your plate, it's going to be worth it. And the worst thing that could happen is you decide in a few months not to do it anymore. But I can't imagine that's going to happen, because from our experience, it has been the best decision we could have made, because we know our property is in good hands and the experts do what they do. And you guys do such a good job of communicating too, that the ownership portal is very easy to manage and clear communication, very straightforward. And so you're always in the loop. And by the time you're done, you realize, wow, I wish I would have done this. I told that to John. I said, I wish we had done this 2 years ago. This would have saved us a lot of stress a lot sooner. So anyone on the fence, I would definitely say, at least give it a shot, see what you think. You guys don't make any kind of hard commitments on us or contracts that keep us locked in, but your work stands for itself. And so that's how you're keeping your clients, is that it's just working really well.